Power is not a virtue. It is not a gift. It is not even a possession. Power is a shifting current, a storm without loyalty, and only those who understand its nature can ride it without drowning. Those who chase power as if it were gold will lose it. Those who stand still in reverence will be crushed by it. Only those who hold it with cold fingers, without illusion, can bend it to their will. The world has never been governed by justice alone. It is governed by fear, calculation, and the delicate theater of appearances. Men trust their eyes more than their hearts. They are deceived willingly. They would rather admire a mask of strength than confront the naked chaos beneath. A leader must understand this weakness. To rule is not to reveal oneself, it is to sculpt the shadow others believe in. Loyalty is a fragile weapon. It is not forged by gratitude, but by necessity. As long as people need you, they will follow you. Once they no longer need you, they will betray you. Do not confuse devotion with permanence. Devotion is rented, not owned. The wise ruler does not weep at betrayal. He anticipates it and places his enemies where they cannot strike without also destroying themselves. Ambition is both poison and fuel. It devours those who cannot master it, and it elevates those who use it as a whip upon their own back. The weak despise ambition in others because it reveals their own cowardice. The strong harness it, not as a dream, but as a weapon sharpened on the stone of necessity. To aim low is to be crushed. To aim high is to risk destruction. But power belongs only to those willing to risk everything on the blade's edge. Fear is more reliable than love. Men love as long as it pleases them. They fear as long as they believe you can strike. Love is a bond that frays with time. Fear is a chain that endures as long as the hand that forged it remains unshaken. But the art lies in balance. Fear without respect breeds revolt. Love without authority breeds contempt. The ruler must know how to stand at the center of this tension, drawing obedience not from affection, but from inevitability. Control is never total, but appearances of control must be. A king can bleed, but never in public. A commander can doubt, but never before his soldiers. The moment your weakness is seen, it multiplies in the minds of others, spreading faster than truth. Reality bends to perception. It is not the blade that commands respect, but the belief that the blade will fall. Manipulation is not trickery. It is the art of moving human nature, as one moves pieces on a board. Men want to be deceived, so long as the lie flatters their hopes. They despise honesty when it strips them bare. To lead, you must feed illusions not because truth is powerless, but because truth without disguise is unbearable. He who controls the story controls the loyalty of the crowd. Betrayal is the price of command. No throne, no empire, no republic has been built without it. Betrayal does not come from enemies alone. It comes from allies who outgrow their leash, from friends who desire what you guard, from followers who mistake your favor for their entitlement. The wise ruler does not merely punish betrayal, he uses it as a lesson carved into stone, so that others see the cost of disloyalty before they dare to test it. The state is not a family. It is not a church. It is a battlefield of interests dressed in the robes of order. Every law, every institution, every oath is a mask covering the fist beneath. Those who forget this become prey to those who remember. Power is not preserved by kindness, nor by righteousness, but by vigilance, by calculation, by the ruthless understanding that every smile hides a knife. In the theater of politics, the stage is illusion and the audience is restless. A ruler must know when to speak, when to remain silent, when to raise his voice to thunder, and when to whisper like a serpent in the dark. To show everything is weakness. To conceal everything is folly. To reveal just enough at the right time is mastery. Remember this: men are not guided by reason, but by appetite, fear, and hope. To rule them, you must know their hunger. To command them, you must become both their nightmare and their dream. Power does not forgive hesitation. The moment you pause, another hand seizes the reins. The moment you falter, another voice claims the throne. So learn the laws not as ornaments of knowledge, but as weapons of survival. Each is a blade forged in the furnace of human weakness. Master them, and you command the currents that drown lesser men. Ignore them, and you become the prey in a world where mercy is a myth and power is the only truth that endures. Power is never static. It breathes, it shifts, it feeds on the movements of men, their fears, their desires, their envy. To grasp it is to see something alive, restless, always trying to slip away. Those who imagine that power can be held forever by mere possession are deceived. It must be cultivated daily, defended hourly, sharpened like a blade against the stone of conflict. The throne is not wood and gold. It is tension held together by fear and belief, and it collapses the moment either is broken. The first instinct of power is survival. Every ruler, every leader, every commander feels it, the silent weight of enemies waiting in the shadows. It is not enough to strike them down. One must also prevent them from rising again. To leave a rival half defeated is to plant the seed of future rebellion. Mercy shown to a dangerous enemy is not virtue, it is negligence, and negligence is treason to oneself. Better to be feared as ruthless than remembered as weak. But survival alone is not enough. To wield power is also to command illusion. Men see only what they are allowed to see. They do not crave truth, they crave certainty. They want to believe their leader is destined, their cause righteous, their victory inevitable. Strip away these illusions, and they will crumble in despair. Feed them carefully, and they will march into fire at your command. He who understands the hunger for illusion holds dominion over those who cannot endure reality. The game of power is also the game of masks. Never reveal the depth of your ambition. Never show the full reach of your designs. Men fear what they cannot predict, and they resist what they clearly see. Conceal your true path with diversions, flatteries, and half-truths. Let them believe they understand you while they walk blindly into the traps you set. To govern without deception is to fight with bare hands against an armed enemy. Secrecy is not cowardice, it is the shield of kings. In every court, in every palace, in every assembly, the same forces move: ambition, envy, loyalty, fear. They collide like waves, and the wise ruler channels them rather than resists them. Divide your rivals, feed their suspicions, and let them consume each other while you stand untouched. Unity among enemies is death. Discord among them is life. The ruler who sows division plants his own security. No power can exist without the theater of punishment. Men obey not because they understand laws, but because they fear the consequence of breaking them. A single punishment carried out decisively teaches more than 1,000 gentle warnings. Make examples rare but unforgettable. Strike not in anger, but with cold precision, so that the memory lingers longer than the wound. In power, cruelty measured is not vice but necessity. And yet, power is not maintained by cruelty alone. Fear must be mingled with reward, or men will grow desperate and reckless. A ruler who rules only by terror creates a people who wait only for the chance to kill him. Better to balance severity with favor, punishment with reward, fear with hope. To control men is to master their contradictions, to bind them with chains of iron and silk at once. The architecture of power is built not on trust, but on control of appearances. A leader may falter in private, but never in public. The spectacle of strength is often more important than strength itself. Soldiers fight not for truth, but for the banner they see above them. Citizens obey not because the law is just, but because it appears inevitable. Perception governs reality. Lose the perception, and reality collapses soon after. Rivals, allies, followers, all are governed by the same law. They serve as long as service benefits them. Gratitude fades, promises dissolve, oaths shatter. What remains is self-interest. The ruler must not mourn this truth, but wield it. Align the ambitions of others with your own, and they will become your instruments. When their ambitions diverge, remove them swiftly. A state is not a sanctuary of loyalty. It is a field of shifting alliances where only vigilance preserves dominion. And in the silence of night, when the court is empty and the voices fade, every ruler knows the solitude of command. The faces of the loyal, the treacherous, the fearful pass like shadows in the mind. Doubt creeps, questions gnaw, and the cost of power weighs heavier than gold. Yet the throne demands endurance. To lead is not to seek comfort, but to bear the burden that others cannot, to walk the narrow path where hesitation is ruin and weakness is death. Power thrives in silence as much as in thunder. The ruler who speaks less holds more weight, for words spent carelessly diminish authority. Each pause, each measured glance, each withheld answer breeds speculation, and speculation is more potent than truth. Men will imagine 1,000 reasons for your silence, and in their uncertainty, they will grant you more power than you claim for yourself. Restraint is not passivity. It is the sharpening of the blade before the strike. No man rises alone. Behind every throne stand those who imagine themselves indispensable advisors, allies, financiers, soldiers. Each one thinks the ruler owes him his crown. Each one believes his hand is on the lever of power. This illusion must be broken without breaking their usefulness. Keep them close, but never let them forget they remain servants. Raise one, then another, allowing no single man to think he cannot be replaced. Dependency is the ruler's greatest weapon. Independence is his greatest danger. Flattery is a tool sharper than iron. Men crave to be seen, to be praised, to be acknowledged in their vanity. To deny them is to make enemies. To indulge them is to make pawns. But the wise ruler never swallows his own flattery. Praise is for others, never for oneself. Believe in it, and you become the prisoner of your own illusions. Dispense it strategically, and you hold the leash of those who think themselves lions. In war, as in politics, speed is often worth more than strength. A hesitant ruler loses momentum, and momentum is the soul of command. Strike before the enemy prepares. Decide before rivals organize. Move before hesitation infects your circle. Delay is the ally of dissent. To act swiftly is to keep others reacting to you, never the reverse. But swiftness without calculation is ruin. Precision must guide speed, as the arrow is useless without aim. A ruler must master distance as well as closeness. Be visible enough to inspire loyalty, but distant enough to maintain mystery. Too much familiarity breeds contempt. Too much remoteness breeds indifference. Appear among the people as a figure of destiny, not as a neighbor. Let them see you rarely, but remember you always. What is scarce is precious. What is common is forgotten. The art of presence lies in making absence speak as loudly as appearance. The fate of power is tied not only to men, but to fortune. Fortune favors the bold, but she destroys the reckless. She cannot be controlled, but she can be guided by preparation. Build fortresses of resources, allies, and knowledge before storms arrive. To rely solely on luck is to gamble with your throne. To ignore luck entirely is to blind yourself to her hand. The ruler thrives by courting fortune while never trusting her. Deception is a mirror turned toward ambition. Promise much, deliver selectively, and men will remain hungry. Reveal everything, and you end their dependence. Keep your followers always waiting, always expecting more, always unsure of where they stand. This uncertainty binds them more tightly than loyalty. Certainty frees them. Uncertainty enslaves them. To lead is not to feed every hunger, but to ration hope, so that the crowd always looks to you for the next breath. History is filled with rulers destroyed not by enemies, but by their own comfort. The throne is a seat of danger disguised as luxury. Softness breeds negligence. Negligence invites betrayal. Guard yourself not only against others, but against the decay of your own will. Surround yourself with vigilance, not indulgence. The banquet dulls the senses, but the battlefield sharpens them. Remember that every crown rests on a sword, and forgetfulness is death. To endure in power, one must master both cruelty and mercy. Too much of either corrupts rule. Mercy untempered invites chaos. Cruelty untempered breeds hatred. The wise ruler uses cruelty as a surgeon uses a knife to cut only what must be removed. He uses mercy as a general uses reward to bind loyalty without surrendering control. Balance is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Every empire, every kingdom, every republic is built not on ideals but on necessity. Men speak of freedom, virtue, justice, but they obey stability, security, and force. Ideals are banners. Necessity is the soil beneath them. The ruler who forgets this is swept away by the winds of opinion. The ruler who remembers it stands firm even as banners change. To govern is not to serve ideals, but to harness them as tools, binding the people's faith to the state's survival. Power must always conceal its source. If men see too clearly from where authority flows, they will seek to sever it. Obscurity is armor. Keep the machinery hidden, reveal only the spectacle. Let them see the crown, not the scaffolding that holds it in place. The more they wonder, the more they submit, for mystery magnifies strength while exposure invites attack. Every alliance carries the seed of betrayal. No pact is eternal, no oath unbreakable. Men swear loyalty in the morning and plot treason at night. The wise ruler accepts this as the natural order. He binds allies not by words, but by chains of interest. As long as their prosperity depends on his survival, their treachery remains caged. Remove that necessity, and their daggers will find his back. Power is tested most when it seems most secure. The moment of triumph is the moment of greatest danger. Victory intoxicates, dulls vigilance, and feeds arrogance. Many rulers are destroyed not in the struggle for power, but in its enjoyment. The wise never drink too deeply of victory. He celebrates with one eye open, knowing that envy grows fastest in the shadow of success. Reputation is a fortress, stronger than stone. It frightens enemies before battle, weakens rivals before confrontation, and commands obedience without force. Guard it with more vigilance than treasure. A single reckless act can undo years of careful construction. Build it deliberately, destroy threats to it without hesitation, and let no insult go unanswered. Reputation once broken is almost never repaired, and a ruler without it is naked among wolves. The art of ruling is the art of anticipation. One does not merely react, one foresees. To foresee is to control. Study men, not only their words, but their silences, not only their actions, but their hesitations. In their smallest gestures lies the map of their intentions. He who sees further commands not only the present, but the future. Blindness to what approaches is the ruler's gravest sin. It is not enough to rule men. One must also rule their symbols. Flags, titles, ceremonies, and rituals seem trivial, but they bind hearts more tightly than law. The crowd does not revere the throne because of its wood or stone, but because of what it represents. To despise ceremony is to despise the very glue of obedience. A ruler must become the master of symbols, bending them into instruments of command. Sometimes the mask of virtue is more powerful than virtue itself. Appear merciful, even when you are ruthless. Appear just, even when you tilt the scales. Appear faithful, even when you betray. Men judge more by appearances than by reality, and in politics appearances are reality. Rule with deception not as falsehood, but as necessity, for to reveal the naked truth is to invite revolt against the imperfection of all rule. The ruler must also know when to burn bridges. Retreat is not always wisdom. There are moments when survival requires removing all possibility of return. To leave a road open is to leave temptation alive. To burn it is to force courage into the veins of your followers and yourself. Desperation can achieve what comfort never dares. Only in the absence of retreat do men discover the full measure of their strength. Enemies sharpen power more than friends. The presence of opposition forces vigilance, discipline, unity. Without enemies, complacency rots the state. Do not seek a world without rivals. Seek a balance where enemies exist, but never dominate. Crush some, tolerate others, elevate a few to distract the rest. The ruler who has no enemies is already in decline, for it means he has ceased to matter. Above all, remember that power is never possessed, only practiced. It is not a jewel to be locked away, but a fire that must be fed. It consumes the careless and abandons the complacent. To rule is to live in motion, never resting, never trusting too fully, never surrendering to illusion. The throne is not a prize, but a battlefield, and the ruler who forgets this truth reigns only for a moment before being devoured by those who remember. Power is never kind to those who hesitate. The battlefield of politics has no room for indecision. To pause is to surrender the initiative, to open the door for rivals to seize momentum. Decisions must come swiftly, even if imperfect, for men follow certainty more readily than truth. Doubt spreads like infection. Once the ruler shows it, the chain of command fractures. Better a bold mistake that inspires fear than a hesitant truth that inspires contempt. Secrecy is the marrow of command. To reveal your full intentions is to disarm yourself before the enemy. Concealment buys time, and time is often more valuable than armies. Let your plans be smoke until the moment they strike like lightning. What is invisible cannot be countered. The art lies not only in hiding, but in misleading, in scattering false trails until enemies exhaust themselves chasing shadows while you advance unopposed. Never build dependence on one pillar alone. To rely on a single ally, a single resource, a single fortress, is to place the crown in another's hand. Diversify your power as a general deploys troops on many fronts, with many layers of defense. The collapse of one support should never collapse the throne. Balance ambition with redundancy, so that no hand but your own can tip the scales of survival. Charm is as lethal as steel. Men often yield more to a smile than to a sword, for charm disarms where force provokes. Use it sparingly, for overindulgence makes it cheap. Let charm be the velvet glove over the iron fist, never the glove alone. To seduce with words is to plant obedience in the heart without resistance, and obedience planted willingly endures longer than obedience forced. But seduction must never blind the ruler to the truth. Men are moved more by fear of loss than by promise of gain. The threat of punishment weighs heavier than the lure of reward. Harness this instinct. Make men fear what they stand to lose their position, their wealth, their life, and they will cling to your command as a drowning man clings to wood. Offer only reward, and they will betray you the moment they taste another's promise. Symbols of power outlive the hand that holds them. A crown, a seal, a flag can inspire obedience long after the ruler is dust. Guard them jealously, for they are vessels through which command flows. To allow their desecration is to allow the erosion of rule itself. Let the people kneel not only to the ruler, but to the emblem, so that even in absence, the structure of obedience remains. The ruler must learn to listen not only to words, but to silence. Men reveal their ambitions in what they do not say, their betrayals in what they avoid. A courtier who flatters too quickly hides a dagger. An ally who delays too long breeds treachery. Silence is not emptiness, but signal. Train your ear to hear what others conceal, and you will know the truth long before it reveals itself. Isolation is poison. A ruler cut off from the pulse of his people and the counsel of his advisors becomes blind. Yet exposure is equally dangerous, for familiarity dissolves fear. The balance lies in selective distance, close enough to sense unrest, distant enough to remain untouchable. Rule like the sun, present to all, yet too far to be grasped, too brilliant to be stared at for long. No ruler escapes the weight of envy. It is the silent conspirator, the unspoken resentment that grows with every triumph. Envy cannot be destroyed, only managed. Share just enough favor to divide it among many. Never allow it to concentrate in one embittered rival. Praise others publicly, diminish them privately, so that their envy never sharpens into a blade. The envy of many is harmless. The envy of one unchecked is fatal. And when fate turns, as it always does, the ruler must know how to retreat without surrendering. Withdrawal is not defeat if it preserves strength for the next strike. Men mistake survival for weakness, yet survival is the seed of resurrection. To live through loss is to outlast those who cannot. Fortune favors those who can bend without breaking, who know when to endure storms, so they may command the calm that follows. Power feeds on perception, and perception is crafted through contrast. To appear generous, one must first withhold. To appear merciful, one must first be feared. To appear inevitable, one must first hide vulnerability. Men see virtue most clearly against the shadow of its opposite. A ruler who gives constantly is soon taken for granted, but a ruler who withholds and then bestows commands gratitude as if he were divine. Control the rhythm of scarcity and abundance. and you control the pulse of loyalty. No man should ever outshine the ruler. Talent in others is useful, but only so long as it reflects glory upward. A brilliant subordinate who grows too visible becomes a rival in the minds of the people. To prevent this, reward competence, but limit recognition. Let them shine in your name, not their own. The court must have only one sun. All others must glow as reflected stars, dependent on the light you allow them. Always conceal the cost of your power. Let the burdens, the doubts, the sacrifices remain hidden. A ruler who reveals his weariness invites vultures. Men want to believe their leader is tireless, untouchable, chosen by destiny itself. Even in solitude, you must rehearse strength, for solitude rarely remains secret. The walls of palaces leak whispers, and whispers shape rebellion more than proclamations. Never allow your humanity to eclipse the aura of inevitability. Do not fight battles you cannot win. Pride has destroyed more rulers than cowardice. A tactical retreat is wiser than a glorious defeat. Power is measured not by how many battles you fight, but by how many you choose not to. A ruler who engages only when certain of victory projects mastery. A ruler who fights every challenge projects desperation. Choose your wars as you choose your heirs carefully, rarely, and with full recognition of the consequences. Power rests not only in what is done, but in what is denied. To say no is to establish hierarchy. To refuse a request is to remind others of their dependence. Grant too much, and you become a servant of your own generosity. Denial breeds respect. Approval breeds expectation. Use denial not as cruelty, but as instruction, teaching others that your favor is precious and never guaranteed. Punishment must be swift, but forgiveness must be deliberate. The sudden blow creates fear, but the slow granting of pardon creates dependence. Men long for absolution. They crave to be restored. Stretch out forgiveness like a delayed sunrise, making them wait, making them beg, making them grateful when it arrives. In this way, mercy becomes a tool not of weakness but of control, binding men to you through the relief of their own reprieve. Rivals must never be underestimated. The moment you dismiss an enemy as too small, he begins to grow. Power abhors negligence. Crush small threats before they become large, for the spark ignored becomes the inferno that consumes the throne. Yet never strike unnecessarily. Wasted cruelty drains legitimacy. The art lies in discernment, knowing which enemies to ignore, which to exploit, and which to obliterate without hesitation. Time itself is a weapon. Delay can weaken the impatient, exhaust the reckless, and force rivals to reveal their desperation. A ruler who knows how to wait commands the battlefield without lifting a blade. Yet, waiting must always serve a purpose. Endless delay breeds paralysis. Use time as both shield and spear. Defend by enduring. Attack by striking when the moment has ripened to inevitability. Fortresses of stone are illusions. They breed complacency, isolate rulers from their people, and make them prisoners of their own defense. True fortresses are loyalty, fear, wealth, and perception. A ruler surrounded by iron walls but abandoned by his subjects is already dead. Better to walk exposed among the people while their obedience forms an invisible shield than to rot behind towers that crumble from neglect. Never allow familiarity to diminish awe. The people should know your image but not your essence. Let them see the crown, not the scars. Let them hear your voice, not your doubts. Too much closeness breeds contempt, and contempt erodes authority faster than rebellion. The ruler must stand both as man and myth, flesh in private, but symbol in public. Lose the balance, and you are no longer a ruler but a mere figure exposed to the mockery of all. Power rewards audacity, but punishes recklessness. The ruler must dare where others hesitate, yet he must also know when to disguise daring as inevitability. Boldness unsettles rivals, compels followers, and creates the illusion of destiny. But boldness without calculation is suicide. To leap blindly is to hand fortune the blade with which she cuts down fools. The true master moves as if fate itself obeys his will, yet every step is measured in advance. Men are captivated more by spectacle than by substance. A single display of magnificence, staged at the right moment, outweighs years of ordinary governance. Ceremonies, triumphs, and grand gestures fix themselves in memory and become proof of legitimacy. Ordinary days fade, but one dazzling performance cements power for decades. The ruler who neglects theater rules only bodies. The ruler who masters spectacle rules heart. Always make others do the work while you take the credit. Labor exhausts. Recognition nourishes authority. Men are eager to prove themselves if they believe they will be seen, but their ambition must always circle back to your glory. Reward their effort, but never allow their triumph to outshine your own. In this way, you multiply your power without multiplying your burdens, and your name becomes synonymous with victory, whether or not your hand struck the blow. Control depends on unpredictability. When men believe they can forecast your actions, they learn to resist you. Keep them unbalanced, never entirely certain of your next move. Consistency in principle can coexist with inconsistency in method. Surprise confuses the bold, frightens the cautious, and paralyzes the ambitious. To be predictable is to invite manipulation. To be unreadable is to command respect. Know how to remove rivals with elegance. Brutality alone breeds martyrs. Silence erases memory. When a rival must fall, let it appear as fate, misfortune, or his own misstep. The ruler's hand should rarely be visible in the death of an enemy. Fear is useful, but fear without deniability invites revenge. Let men tremble at your unseen power, unsure whether you struck or destiny did. Ambiguity preserves authority better than confession. In councils, speak last. Let others exhaust themselves in argument, reveal their weaknesses, and expose their ambitions. By the time your voice enters, it carries the weight of finality. To speak too soon is to become entangled in noise. To speak last is to appear as the arbiter of reason, even when reason is merely strategy. The silence of listening is not weakness. It is preparation for a word that cuts deeper than 1,000 spoken before. A ruler must never appear desperate for power. The crown is not seized with trembling hands, but worn as if it had always belonged there. Men follow confidence, not craving. Desire for power must be masked as duty, as inevitability, as the burden of destiny. Show eagerness, and they suspect ambition. Show calm possession, and they accept your rule as natural law. Power is strongest when it seems least desired. Divide your forces, but unite your image. Allow generals, ministers, and factions to compete among themselves, but keep the symbol of authority singular. Rivalries beneath you prevent any coalition against you, but your own face must remain the unifying banner. The people tolerate conflict below as long as harmony reigns above. The ruler is not the mediator of disputes, but the embodiment of order itself. Never neglect the use of fear in silence. Words can be debated, explained, diminished, but silence breeds dread. A ruler who listens without answer makes men uneasy. They begin to imagine the worst, and imagination punishes more deeply than decree. Sometimes the absence of threat terrifies more than the threat itself, for the unknown is sharper than the known. Let silence become one of your deadliest weapons. Fortune will test every throne with storms. Some rulers are broken by them. Others use them as proof of their resilience. When crisis comes, do not collapse into complaint or lament. Stand like an immovable pillar, and men will project onto you the strength they lack themselves. Calm in chaos magnifies authority, for the crowd seeks a fixed point in the whirlwind. Become that point, and even disaster becomes a stage for power. Power is sustained not only by conquest, but by the careful management of memory. Men forget quickly what benefits they receive, but they remember for years the pain of humiliation. Therefore, when granting favors, give them sparingly, in intervals, so gratitude is renewed. But when inflicting punishment, strike decisively and only once, so that fear endures, while resentment cannot gather strength through repetition. To distribute rewards gradually and punishment suddenly is to command both hope and terror with precision. A ruler must never rely too heavily on fortune's tide. Fortune is fickle, and those who depend on her are carried to ruin as swiftly as they were raised. Prudence demands the construction of one's own foundations, wealth, soldiers, loyal institutions, and a network of necessity that binds men to your cause. To be lifted by fortune is pleasing, but to be carried entirely by her is to live at the mercy of winds that no hand can command. Suspicion, though bitter, preserves crowns. Trust too freely, and your own court becomes your executioner. Trust too little, and you breed paralysis. The art lies in measured suspicion enough to keep men cautious, but not so much that it strangles your state. Let no advisor grow unchecked, no general gather too much applause, no minister become beloved. The ruler must remain the central axis, all else must revolve around him. It is wiser to appear devout than to be devout. Religion, morality, ideology, these are the languages by which masses are led. Whether the ruler believes matters less than whether the people believe he believes. Appearances sustain faith, and faith sustains obedience. But while parading piety, remain free of its chains, for a ruler enslaved to doctrine is no ruler at all, but a prisoner to priests and philosophers. Every state is a theater of ambition. Ambition is not a fire to be extinguished, but a force to be directed. Channel the ambitions of others toward service, and they will strengthen the throne. Allow them to wander unchecked, and they will undermine it. A wise ruler gives his subjects ladders to climb, but ensures that the ladders lean always toward him, never away. Exile teaches that men are loyal only when they profit. Once cast out of favor, even the most loyal friend will turn his eyes toward new masters. Therefore, the ruler must not mourn lost companions, but replace them as swiftly as the sword replaces a broken blade. To dwell on betrayal is weakness. To use betrayal as warning is strength. Every loss teaches where vigilance must increase. The manipulation of fear must always exceed the manipulation of hope. Hope can inspire, but it is fragile, easily broken by disappointment. Fear is more durable, rooted in instinct, in survival. A promise unmet weakens authority. A threat unfulfilled still breeds caution. Let men hope when it is useful, but let them always fear, for fear demands less maintenance and ensures longer obedience. The ruler must never be seen as equal to his subjects. Equality breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds insolence. The distance between ruler and ruled must be maintained through ritual, through privilege, through the visible markers of difference. To erase these boundaries is to invite chaos, for men do not respect those they consider their peers. Authority rests on separation, and separation must be preserved at all costs. War is the natural condition of states. Peace is merely the interval between conflicts, a pause in which arms are sharpened and alliances tested. A ruler who trusts in peace alone builds his house on sand. Even in calm, prepare for storms. Armies unused grow soft, coffers left idle grow empty, and subjects who taste too much ease grow restless. Only by constant preparation for war does peace retain meaning. Men are drawn more by necessity than by affection. They act out of compulsion more often than choice. Therefore, the ruler must bind them not only with loyalty but with need. Let them depend on him for survival, for wealth, for advancement, for safety. When men see that without him they are nothing, they will cling to him even against their will. Dependency is stronger than love, stronger than gratitude, stronger even than fear, for it leaves no alternative. The ruler must never allow disorder to settle within his command, for chaos is a contagion that spreads faster than fire. Small acts of defiance, if ignored, become precedents, and precedents grow into movements. Crush the first signs of rebellion before they take root. Better to appear harsh in the beginning than weak in the end. Order preserved through vigilance requires fewer executions than disorder corrected through neglect. Every throne sits on a balance between fear and favor. To tilt entirely toward one is to risk collapse. A ruler who governs only by favor is loved until the first disappointment, then he is despised. A ruler who governs only by fear is obeyed until desperation inspires revolt. True mastery lies in blending both, so that obedience feels voluntary, while rebellion feels impossible. Men respect consistency of power more than consistency of virtue. A ruler who shifts principles yet remains unshakable in authority is admired for his strength. A ruler who clings to ideals but loses control is pitied, then forgotten. The people forgive contradictions if they are accompanied by stability. They never forgive weakness, no matter how righteous. Generosity is a dangerous weapon when misused. Bestow too much, and men become expectant, not grateful. Give sparingly, and you make them value each favor as a treasure. Let generosity flow in ways that strengthen loyalty or weaken rivals, never in ways that merely display wealth. Gold poured aimlessly is soon squandered. Gold invested in ambition yields obedience for years. It is wiser to keep subjects occupied with labor, ambition, or fear than to let them linger in idleness. Idleness breeds thought. Thought breeds dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction breeds rebellion. A people busy building, fighting, or striving has no time to conspire. A ruler who fills the hands of his subjects secures his throne more firmly than one who fills their bellies. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who declares himself, but the one who waits in silence. Watch not only those who oppose you openly, but also those who flatter most eagerly, for flattery often hides malice. Open hostility can be countered with strength. Hidden hostility must be discovered with cunning. The ruler who neglects to unmask his hidden foes becomes their victim when they strike from the shadows. The ruler must not wage war with half measures. A conflict entered without full commitment drags endlessly, draining coffers and patience. Strike with such force that the enemy cannot recover. Mercy in war prolongs suffering. Decisiveness ends it. A swift, ruthless victory is remembered with fear and respect, while a drawn-out struggle invites mockery and revolt at home. Fortune favors the ruler who knows how to adapt. Rigidity is a slow death. Inflexibility breaks under pressure. When the times demand ferocity, be a wolf. When they demand patience, be a fox. The ruler who cannot change with the seasons is like a tree that refuses to bend in the wind, admired for its strength, but shattered when the storm arrives. Men must believe that their ruler is guided by destiny, not merely by desire. To appear chosen by fate is to elevate power beyond question. This illusion must be cultivated through symbols, victories, and careful manipulation of events. When people see providence in a ruler's rise, they resist less, for they feel resistance is not against a man, but against the will of history itself. Yet the ruler must know that destiny is an invention. There is no star that guarantees rule, no prophecy that secures power. Only cunning, preparation, and resolve preserve a crown. The myth of destiny is for the people. The truth of calculation is for the ruler. To confuse the two is to fall victim to one's own illusions. Power must be shielded from pity. A ruler who begs for sympathy invites disdain, for men do not follow the weak except to devour them. Hardship should never be confessed. It should be transformed into a weapon. Display wounds as proof of survival, not as cries for help. Let suffering become an emblem of endurance, not vulnerability. Authority grows not from sharing burdens, but from appearing able to bear what others cannot. In councils of state, divide responsibility, but never authority. Let ministers argue, let generals quarrel, let advisors clash, but let all decisions flow back to you. When subordinates bear the weight of disputes, they exhaust their ambition against each other. When you alone decide, you consolidate both blame and glory into a single point of power. Dispersed responsibility creates disorder. Centralized command creates obedience. The ruler must beware the intoxication of applause. Praise is the sweetest poison. Crowds cheer today and curse tomorrow. Their adoration is not loyalty but entertainment. Accept their voices, but never depend on them. Let their cheers be a useful tool, never a foundation. For when the tide turns, as it always does, the same mouths that lifted you will cry for your destruction. Nothing corrupts power faster than flattery unresisted. To believe in the illusions of courtiers is to govern in a dream. A ruler must cultivate men who dare to speak truth, but never allow them to forget that their place is beneath him. Balance the harsh medicine of honesty with the sweet poison of praise. In this balance lies clarity without rebellion, truth without insubordination. Never appear to act from compulsion, even when necessity binds you. Every decision must seem chosen, never forced. The people respect a ruler who appears master of circumstances. They despise one who seems their prisoner. Transform necessity into destiny, weakness into strategy, defeat into renewal. The art of rule is not avoiding constraint, but disguising it as command. Wealth must circulate, yet never leave the ruler's grasp. Money in the hands of subjects is potential rebellion. Money in the hands of the ruler is command. Distribute enough to fuel ambition, but retain enough to extinguish revolt. Treasure is not for hoarding, but for shaping obedience, buying loyalty, and denying resources to rivals. Gold is not wealth. Gold is leverage. Injustice is not always ruinous. Inconsistency is. Men can endure tyranny if it is predictable, but they revolt when justice and cruelty alternate without pattern. The ruler must be consistent in severity and deliberate in generosity. What is constant breeds obedience. What is erratic breeds conspiracy. Govern with rhythm, so that even harshness feels inevitable and therefore unchallengeable. The seeds of downfall are often planted in moments of peace. A ruler who believes tranquility permanent forgets that enemies sharpen their knives in silence. Peace should never be trusted. It is a mask that hides preparation for war. Use it not to indulge, but to strengthen. Let every calm season be an armory built, a treasury filled, a network of spies expanded. Peace is not rest. Peace is preparation. A ruler must learn to vanish strategically. Too much presence breeds fatigue. Too much absence breeds rebellion. Appear when your image strengthens unity. Disappear when your silence magnifies mystery. When men wait for your return, they value you more than when you are always before their eyes. Authority is fed not by constant exposure, but by scarcity. And above all, the ruler must know when to end his reign on his own terms. To cling beyond the season of strength is to watch power rot in his hands. Better to step aside while feared than to be dragged down in scorn. Greatness is not in eternal rule, but in the mastery of one's exit. For power, like life, obeys the law of decay, and only the ruler who yields before collapse escapes the fate of all others. To be remembered not for triumph, but for downfall. Power does not forgive distraction. The ruler who divides his attention between private indulgence and public duty weakens both. Pleasure dulls vigilance, and vigilance abandoned invites conspiracy. A throne cannot be shared with comfort. It must be guarded with sleeplessness. Luxury is the most seductive assassin, for it kills not with daggers but with forgetfulness. The crown that rests too lightly upon the head soon slips into the hands of another. The wise ruler knows that men measure him not by his intentions but by his results. Promises are air, achievements are stone. Words must never outpace deeds, for every unfulfilled promise becomes a weapon in the mouths of rivals. Deliver less than you proclaim, and you will be despised. Deliver more than you promise, and you will be feared. Authority grows not from the eloquence of speech, but from the weight of consequence. Never underestimate the use of spies. Armies protect borders, but spies protect thrones. What is seen is easily defended. What is unseen strikes without warning. Information is the lifeblood of command, and ignorance is its grave. To know the secrets of your enemies, your allies, and even your subjects is to rule not only over their actions, but over their very intentions. The unseen ear is sharper than the sword. A ruler must also learn to mask cruelty beneath necessity. Kill not for anger, but for order. When you must destroy, destroy without hesitation, yet frame it as the unavoidable demand of stability. Men will endure bloodshed when told it is for the preservation of peace. They will revolt when they believe it springs from malice. Cloak every act of severity in the garment of justice, and even your victims will leave behind obedience in their death. Power requires the constant pruning of ambition within the court. Allow no branch to grow so tall it shades the throne. Elevate men only to the height where they remain dependent, and if they reach beyond it, cut them down without regret. Better to be accused of envy than to risk being dethroned by ingratitude. The state is a garden, and unchecked ambition is the weed that consumes it. The ruler must master not only command, but succession. To leave the state unprepared for his death is to invite vultures the moment he falls. Authority is preserved by continuity. Without it, even the greatest achievements collapse into chaos. Choose heirs not for affection but for capacity. Build institutions stronger than personalities, so that the throne outlives the body that wears the crown. Finally, the ruler must accept that power is a burden carried alone. Advisors may counsel, soldiers may fight, people may obey, but the solitude of command belongs only to him. In the silence between decisions, in the shadow of betrayal, in the weight of every consequence, he stands without equal. This solitude is not weakness but destiny, the price paid for standing above men rather than among them. And so the architecture of rule is revealed, not built on virtue, nor sustained by justice, but balanced upon fear, necessity, calculation, and the perpetual shaping of appearances. To misunderstand this is to be destroyed by those who understand it better. To master it is to endure, not as a dreamer of ideals, but as a keeper of reality, cold and inexorable. For in the end, there are no rulers who are loved forever, but only rulers who survive long enough to shape the memory of their reign. Power ends as it begins in struggle, in calculation, in the ceaseless contest of wills. No throne is eternal, no command unshaken, no fear everlasting. What endures is not the ruler himself, but the mark he carves into the memory of men. Weak rulers vanish as whispers, remembered only for their fall. Strong rulers linger as shadows, shaping generations long after their bones have turned to dust. The wise ruler accepts that survival, not love, is the measure of rule. To endure is to triumph, to fall is to be erased. It is not enough to have ruled. One must leave behind the impression that it could never have been otherwise. Even in death, the illusion of inevitability must remain, so that history itself bends to the image of authority. But authority is not a gift. It is a fire stolen from the gods, held at risk, burning the one who dares to grasp it. To wield power is to walk forever alone, surrounded by men yet trusted by none, elevated above them yet never free. This solitude is the ruler's crown, heavier than gold, sharper than iron. And when the final moment comes, when the ruler lays aside his mask and faces the silence that no subject can fill, he must know that he has played his part in the oldest drama of mankind. For power is not kindness, not virtue, not hope, it is necessity, it is survival. It is the unyielding truth at the heart of human affairs. To master it is not to live forever, but to rule as if forever were possible. To command until the last breath, leaving behind a world reshaped by will, is the closest thing to immortality a ruler will ever know.